So it's my second time, and the first time was in 2014 in Budapest. So it was the first installment of Write the Docs, and so now I've been able to see it again after 3 years, after maturating a bit. And that's my second time I talk. And my first time in Prague, and last time was my first time in Budapest. I think the first time when I applied randomly, I didn't know much about it, and it happened. I was just browsing for call for papers, just see where could I travel and where could I go to actually speak about something which is of my interest. And back in the days, I was interested in sharing and explaining to people the importance of readmes in projects, because I thought that's an endpoint where you can expose how you think and how it's minimalistic documentation. And so that I discovered that community, and actually I didn't know there was like a documentarian community, and I thought that just doing readmes was a best practice, but I discovered there was like a broader practice than that, and that the two worlds of like developer and documentarian was actually quite linked, and even the UX persons as well, because I thought there is a lot of the thinking in writing documentation which is about what is actually the experience you want to give to the end users being product users or develop libraries or APIs or whatsoever. And I really liked it because I learned many things, and I also learned a bit more about me. What I didn't know I was liking writing documentation, I just took that as I thought it was part of the job. And so it's funny to come back like 3 years later and see that the conference has evolved, that now you have there is a writing day prior to the conference, which is a good icebreaker. It's also a good way to, just meet and greet with people, see the topics, start conversation. And so when the first day of the conference arrives, you already know a few heads, and actually you sometimes met already with speakers, so it's kind of nice. And I like pretty much the fact I love the hallway talks. Like when people are listening to the talks, like talking with other people, I find it's very rich, and you get to know many things that you wouldn't even see on slides or whatsoever. And I like the fact they officialized that with the end conference track. So I take into account that, in the morning I would listen to the talks, and in the afternoon I would go to these conferences sessions, because like yesterday there was self-care. I was aiming to another session, but I didn't like it. I went to self-care, and the conversation, I thought I would go and not learn anything, but actually it was super rich because people were really concerned about the topic, and so it was very fluid conversation. It was very interesting. And the stuff I took for granted or I really care about, when I shared them, people were kind of surprised that you can really do it, and it's not just in the ideal world. So it's a good reality check, which is interesting. So definitely, on conferences became to me one of the major points where even if the program can be so-so for you, you always have. I think it's good to always have a room to actually decide what you want to do. To rest downstairs in the quiet room, which is good. I like quiet places, so that's a good thing for me. To me, that is just way big enough to recommend that conference to people. I tend to do less conference over the years, but Write the Docs is definitely one I go to with, I guess, no hesitation. So I think it's the first year I hear about Developer Portal. So I don't know as a product what it has to offer. The only distinction I would make would be between a basic documentation or a reference documentation which lists just things. And for API documentation, I would see having the possibility to have it interactive, where you have all the methods, parameters, and then you can eventually run a few examples within as you read the documentation, a bit like Swagger would do. But that's it. I would rather think in terms of documentation and features for that documentation. Maybe you could consider if I try to understand what is a developer portal, maybe the Google developer portal would be. You would have something where you choose your API and you have a few examples and connects to a sandbox, and so you can play as you go. But that's the only thing which would make me think it's the name of portal. I initially quite liked the Swagger because you could generate everything from the schema, but I liked the idea, but always ended up with schemas which are so big that in the end I didn't even know what I was manipulating. I just knew it worked, so that was fine. I would say as a second point, the fact that documentation or the artifact which comes out of it is reusable in some way, I guess makes it easier to integrate with other tools, which is the counterpoint is if writing it puts the writers and the consumers into some kind of gated thingy, it might be more difficult to create the tools they need for their own workflow. And so I like the fact that if you generate a doc, if it's consumable as a JSON object or as an object which is translatable to other tools which are popular in use in IDEs or even like Amazon Gateway API or stuff like that, it's like less work. You know it's going to work. It becomes an enabler. And the third point would be testing, because the most troubling thing I've seen is like you can write something, but you never know when you make mistakes. And so it's very easy to say, well, I've written the doc, it works, it's shipped, it's online, but actually it's when you test that thing that you realize that it doesn't work so well. Easy, reusable, testable. I'd guess that three most important stuff. Understandable, but that I guess it's a given. But yeah, it has to be always put in the perspective of not just us and asking people to comply to us, but more us saying, well, how can we open up the readability of the content?